They said he was guilty. She said he wasn't. And what happened next? No one in that courtroom saw it coming. "Mr. Green, your client needs a statement." Silence. Judge Reiner's eyebrow twitched, just slightly, but it was enough to show his patience was wearing thin. The courtroom was packed wall to wall, reporters, onlookers, thrill-seekers, all waiting to see if a young millionaire would squirm or somehow talk his way out of a nightmare. But Monroe Green, the defense attorney, simply shook his head, closed his briefcase with quiet finality, and said, "I'm withdrawing, Your Honor." Effective immediately. The room gasped. Some stood. Others began typing furiously. But one person didn't move. A small girl in the third row, in a dress too big and hair full of beads, sat completely still. 8-year-old Amara Johnson. Nobody noticed her when the crowd came in. Nobody cared who she was. Not yet. At the defense table, Ethan Brixley was frozen, his chair suddenly empty beside him. At just 26, he had gone from tech hero to public enemy. A year ago, Forbes had dubbed him the People's Billionaire for creating an app that helped thousands during lockdown. Now he sat in cuffs, accused of something so cold that even strangers wanted him locked away forever. But he hadn't done it. He knew that. God knew that. The judge struck his gavel. "This is highly irregular, Mr. Green." "I understand, Your Honor," Green replied, "but I can't defend someone who won't tell me the truth." The words hit harder than a verdict. Didn't matter that Ethan had told the truth. No one was listening anymore. And then, a voice, soft but clear, rose from the middle of the courtroom. "I can defend him." Everything stopped. The judge leaned forward. "Excuse me?" Amara stood up. She was trembling, but her feet didn't move. "I said, I can defend him." Laughter. A man near the front stifled a laugh. Someone hit record on their phone. The bailiff hesitated, unsure if this was real. "What's your name?" the judge asked. "Amara Johnson." "And how old are you?" 8. "I know I'm not a real lawyer," she said quickly, "but I read everything. I watched every video. He didn't do it. I know he didn't." Everyone expected security to escort her out, but Judge Reiner didn't move, not yet. "And how would you know that?" he asked. "Because he saved my brother's life 2 years ago." Ethan slowly turned in his seat, eyes wide. He remembered her face, but not the moment she was talking about. Now the courtroom leaned in. Phones lowered. Reporters finally looked up from their screens. Amara held the bench in front of her like it was keeping her steady. He was part of the program Ethan paid for. We had nothing, no Wi-Fi, no laptops, but Ethan gave all the kids in our building tablets and internet. My brother looked up to him. He was going to college because of Ethan, but he died last year. Silence. "I want to speak for Ethan," she said, her voice low but strong, "because no one else is. And if I'm not allowed to, maybe this court doesn't care about the truth." The judge leaned back, watching her now with something closer to respect than pity. The bailiff looked unsure. The courtroom cameras didn't stop rolling. In less than 3 minutes, the entire trial had flipped. What nobody knew yet was that this child and this accused billionaire shared a bond even they didn't fully understand. And nobody expected the judge to let her stay. But he did. He let Amara sit up front while the clerk whispered nervously to the bailiff. Meanwhile, a shaky live stream from someone's phone spread like wildfire. A kid just stood up in court and said she would defend a millionaire. And she meant it. Ethan remained in silence, still shackled, staring at the girl who just did what even his own lawyer couldn't. He wanted to thank her. But how do you thank someone you don't even know? Someone who believes in you when no one else will? "Court will recess for 20 minutes, the judge said, voice steady but curious. "And someone please get this child a parent or guardian before I end up rewriting the entire rulebook." The gavel dropped, and the room erupted into whispers as people started filing out. But Amara didn't move. She just sat there, staring at Ethan like she was searching his soul. 2 hours earlier, her day had started like any other. The apartment smelled like leftover fried chicken, and the TV was quietly replaying one of her grandma's favorite game shows. Grandma Joyce was fast asleep on the couch, an oxygen tube resting gently in her nose, her breathing slow and steady. Amara tiptoed around her. She was supposed to be at school in an hour, but today she had other plans. Today mattered. She slipped on her faded denim jacket, grabbed the old backpack she never really used for school, and headed out. Inside the bag wasn't a single pencil, just a spiral notebook packed full of printed-out articles, dozens of them, all about Ethan Brixley. She'd spent weeks at the library reading everything she could, not for an assignment, because she wanted to. Where most people saw a rich guy who made a mistake, Amara saw something else. She saw the man who gave her brother Malik a chance. Malik was 17 when he joined Ethan's coding mentorship program. That opportunity gave him hope, a laptop, and a glimpse of a life bigger than the one they knew in East St. Louis. But then he was gone. A shooting outside a corner store took him away before he ever got to finish the program. Amara never blamed Ethan. How could she? If anything, she felt like he was the only person who ever saw kids like Malik at all. And now people wanted to lock him away for something she believed with all her heart he didn't do. "How do you know, Amara?" kids at school asked. She never answered. But deep down she just did. She believed in him more than anyone had ever believed in her. So she skipped school, walked all the way to the courthouse, and sat quietly in the gallery for hours just to see him with her own eyes. And when his lawyer gave up on him right in front of everyone, something inside her snapped. If no one else was going to stand up for him, then she would. Out in the hallway, the building was chaos. Reporters swarmed anyone who looked like they might know the girl who stood up in court. Amara kept her head down as a court officer gently led her into a quiet side room. "Sweetheart," the woman said softly, "who's your parent or guardian?" "My grandma, she's home." "Do you have her number?" Amara nodded and scribbled it on a scrap of paper. The officer dialed but got no answer. Grandma Joyce slept hard when she was tired. Amara sat there, feet swinging off the chair, clutching her notebook, when the door creaked open. It was him, Ethan, still in cuffs, flanked by 2 deputies but staring right at her. "You," he said, his voice low, almost like he was speaking to a memory. "Why would you do that?" Amara looked up at him and shrugged. "Because you didn't do it." He blinked. "You don't even know me." "Yes, I do," she said. "You helped my brother." The deputies exchanged glances. "What's your name?" Ethan asked. "Amara." I'm so sorry about your brother," he whispered. "I didn't know." She nodded like she already expected that. "You gave him something nobody else did. That matters." Before he could reply, the deputies led him toward a side door. He looked like he wanted to say more, but there wasn't time. Amara stayed seated, gripping her notebook. Her heart was racing. If the judge gave her the chance to speak, she was ready. She'd studied every article, memorized every detail. She could recite the timeline by heart. She would be heard. What she didn't realize yet was that standing up for Ethan Brixley was about to pull her into something much larger than she could have imagined. Because before the courtroom, before the headlines, Ethan had it all. But not because he was born into wealth. Far from it. He grew up in Bakersfield, California, raised by a single mom who worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. At 15, he fixed a busted laptop someone had left out for trash. That moment changed his life. By 19, he'd built his first app from a dorm room. By 24, he was a millionaire. By 26, the word billionaire followed him around whether he liked it or not. People called him a genius. Investors lined up. His company, Linkbridge, wasn't just a startup. It became a lifeline. It gave underserved youth access to mentors, internships, scholarships. And during the pandemic, when everything shut down, Linkbridge kept learning alive. It kept families afloat. But good headlines don't last forever. 3 months ago, everything changed. A fire broke out in an abandoned warehouse in St. Louis. Inside, police found a man barely conscious, badly beaten. That man was Victor Hale, a rival executive who had recently accused Ethan of stealing his tech. The media didn't wait. Tech tycoon assaults competitor. That was the story. Ethan denied everything. "I wasn't even in St. Louis," he told reporters. But the evidence said otherwise. A phone ping near city limits, a rental car on a traffic camera, and then one final blow. Police raided his office and found hidden cash in a private safe, thousands of dollars. That's what they found stashed in his office, cash. Not illegal, but strange. Strange for a man who built his entire life around digital innovation. The media pounced. Sponsors backed away. Investors vanished. People who once lined up to shake his hand suddenly acted like they never knew his name. Then came the charges: attempted murder, conspiracy, aggravated assault. Ethan knew the truth. He hadn't touched Victor Hale. He didn't even know how the man ended up in that warehouse. But the evidence? It screamed guilty, and the more he tried to speak, the more the world tuned him out. The only person who'd stood by him was his lawyer, Monroe Green. At least until that morning, what was supposed to be a 20-minute recess stretched into a full hour. Ethan sat alone in a holding room, staring at the cold cinder block wall. He didn't pray much, but today he did, hoping anyone would believe him. The door opened. A deputy stepped in. "You've got 5 minutes." Ethan looked up and froze. Amara. Small frame, big eyes. That same notebook clutched to her chest like armor. "How did you even get in here?" he asked, baffled. The deputy just shrugged. "Judge said, let her speak." Ethan almost laughed in disbelief. "This is wild." Amara stepped closer. "Why did your lawyer quit?" she asked. Ethan sighed. "Because I wouldn't lie. He wanted me to say I was at the warehouse but didn't do anything. But I wasn't there. At all." "You sure?" she asked. "Yes." His voice was sharp, then softened. "I swear I wasn't." Amara studied him like a teacher grading a test. "Then why'd your phone say you were in St. Louis?" I don't know." He rubbed the cuffs at his wrists. "I think someone set me up." "Who?" "I wish I knew." She flipped open her notebook, pages filled with scribbles, articles, timelines, and blue ink. "I've been reading everything about you," she said. "You gave kids laptops, paid for summer camps, helped people go to college." "Yeah. You don't sound like someone who'd beat a man almost to death." Ethan gave a bitter smile. "Tell that to the media." "I will," she said, eyes locked on his. He blinked. "You really think anyone's going to listen to you?" "They better," she said without hesitation, "because I'm not lying." And for the first time in weeks, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in a long, long time. Hope. It made no sense. A billionaire finding hope in an 8-year-old with braids and a stubborn heart. But there it was. Before the deputy pulled him away, Ethan asked, "Amara, why are you doing this? Really?" She looked him straight in the eye. "Because no one believed my brother either." Ethan froze. "What do you mean?" She took a deep breath. "When Malik died, everyone said he was just another gang kid. But he wasn't. He wanted to build apps. He wanted to work for you. Nobody told his story right. So I'm going to tell yours." The deputy tapped his watch. Time was up. As Ethan was led away, he felt something tighten in his chest. He still didn't know if this little girl could save him. But for the first time in a long time, someone saw him as more than just a headline. And what neither of them knew yet was that the truth about that warehouse was darker than either of them imagined. Back in the courtroom, the energy was electric. Judge Reiner returned to his bench, and the noise hushed in an instant. The cameras were still rolling. Social media was erupting. Hashtags trended. Free Ethan. Hatch Kid Lawyer. Who is Amara? Amara sat up straight. Her feet barely touched the floor, but her stare didn't flinch. She was ready. "Miss Johnson," the judge began, "I admire your passion, but you're not licensed to represent anyone in this court." "I know that, sir," Amara replied. "I'm not trying to be a lawyer. I'm just asking you to listen, please." Judge Reiner paused, studying her. Then, "1 minute," he said. "Make it count." The crowd leaned forward as if watching the final seconds of a championship game. Amara clutched her notebook and stepped into the center of the courtroom. Her voice trembled at first, then it found its strength. "Everyone thinks he did it because of a video and a phone signal," she said. "But I read everything, and it doesn't add up. They said Mr. Brixley was in St. Louis when Victor Hale got hurt, but flight records show he left L.A. at 7 p.m., and didn't land in Missouri until after midnight. The warehouse is hours away from that airport." A ripple of murmurs spread through the courtroom. Even Ethan looked at her, stunned. "I know people think kids don't understand adult stuff, Amara continued. But math is still math. He couldn't be in two places at once. Somebody lied, and that somebody really wants everyone to hate him. Objection! The prosecutor stood up. Sit down, Judge Reiner snapped. You'll have your turn. Amara turned the page in her notebook. And another thing, what reason would he even have to hurt someone in a warehouse? He doesn't gain anything. But Mr. Hale? She paused. He did. I found an article saying his company was about to lose a massive deal to Linkbridge. If Brixley goes to jail, guess who gets the deal back? The courtroom buzzed like a hive. The prosecutor jumped up again, but Judge Reiner slammed the gavel down. Enough, he said. Miss Johnson, your time is up. Amara nodded, biting her lip. Thank you for listening. She returned to her seat, notebook clutched tightly in her hands. And for the first time all day, the judge looked at Ethan with something more than frustration, maybe even doubt. Court was adjourned until the next day. The media storm hit instantly. Reporters flooded out of the room like horses out of a gate, racing to get the first interview. But Ethan didn't care about any of that. He only looked at the girl sitting quietly, arms wrapped around a notebook like it held the weight of her world. Outside, the sky had turned a soft orange. The courthouse steps overflowed with flashing lights, microphones, and shouted questions. And in the middle of it all stood Amara, alone, scanning the crowd. She didn't have a phone. She knew Grandma Joyce was probably worried sick. Then she heard her name. Amara! She turned and saw her, Grandma Joyce, hurrying toward her, breathless but determined, scarf wrapped tight over tired eyes. Girl, what in the world? Joyce said, reaching out and holding her by the shoulders. You got the whole city talking. I had to, Grandma, Amara said softly. No one else was going to help him. Joyce sighed, pressing a hand to her forehead. Baby, you can't just walk into court like you're Perry Mason. He didn't do it, Amara insisted. Joyce opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. That look in Amara's eyes, stubborn, unshakable, looked just like her mother's. Before they could move, a reporter approached. Amara, Joyce, Channel 5 News. Can we get a quick comment? Joyce stepped forward. Not today. She took Amara's hand and led her away from the cameras. They didn't see the black SUV across the street. Behind tinted windows, a man sat quietly, watching, his face hidden under a cap. His phone buzzed. He answered with one word. Problem. That night, Amara sat on the edge of her bed, the apartment small and loud, the TV replaying clips of her courtroom speech like it was part of a documentary. Grandma Joyce paced the room, arms folded, glancing at the screen, then at her granddaughter. Finally, she sat beside her. Baby, why does this matter so much to you, really? Amara stared at the peeling paint on the wall. Because he cared about us, about Malik. Nobody else did. Joyce's eyes softened. You think helping this man is going to bring Malik back? No, Amara whispered, but maybe it means he didn't die for nothing. Joyce pulled her into a hug, and for the first time all day, Amara let the tears fall. Across town, Ethan lay on his cot in a cold jail cell, staring at the ceiling. Amara's words echoed in his mind. Somebody lied, and he believed her. But who? His thoughts were interrupted by a guard stepping up to the bars. You've got a visitor. Ethan frowned. This late? He was led into the visitor's room, and when he saw who was waiting there, his blood ran cold. Trevor Maddox, his old college roommate, his first business partner, the man he hadn't spoken to in nearly 2 years. Trevor leaned back in the chair, calm, smug. You look rough, E. Ethan sat down slowly, chains clinking against the floor. What are you doing here? Just checking on an old friend, Trevor said, or what's left of him. Ethan narrowed his eyes. You set me up. Trevor chuckled. Relax. I didn't lay a hand on Hale. I'm not that careless. But you wanted me to take the fall. Wanted? Trevor raised an eyebrow. Still do. Ethan's chest tightened. Why, Trevor? I brought you into Linkbridge when nobody else would. You brought me in, Trevor snapped, then pushed me out. Thought you were better than me. I never... Trevor leaned in. I found someone who valued me, someone who had something to gain. Hale, Ethan whispered. Bingo, Trevor said. He wanted you gone. I wanted payback. We made it work. You cloned my sim. Planted the car. Easy stuff, Trevor smirked. The look on your face when the cops showed up, worth every second. Ethan's fists clenched. You think you'll get away with this? Who's gonna believe you, Trevor said. You're not a hero anymore. You're a headline. Tomorrow, you're a conviction. Ethan's hands trembled. Why are you even telling me this? Trevor stood buttoning his jacket. Because I wanted you to know it wasn't luck. It was me. He turned to leave. Enjoy your last night as a free man. The guard returned to escort Ethan out. This time, he didn't resist. The betrayal hit harder than anything else. Meanwhile, Amara sat in the living room, the soft sound of the TV flickering in the background. Grandma Joyce had finally dozed off in the recliner. And Amara? She stared at the notebook in her lap, flipping through her notes one more time. Because deep down she knew. Tomorrow wasn't just another court day. It was war. The news couldn't stop replaying her clip. 10 times in 1 hour. Her name rolled across the screen in bold letters, under headlines like, 8-year-old defends billionaire. Child turns courtroom upside down. She should have been proud, but something didn't feel right. Something was still missing. Amara opened her notebook, flipping through every note, every scribble, every article she'd printed, flight logs, camera timestamps, the warehouse, and then her eyes landed on one name, Trevor Maddox. It was buried in an old piece about Link Bridge's early days. She remembered it. He was there at the start, then disappeared after a lawsuit, no explanation, no follow-up, just gone. She grabbed her pencil and circled his name, hard. Grandma, she whispered, nudging Joyce awake. We gotta go back early tomorrow. Joyce groaned. Child, you trying to give me a heart attack? I think I know who set him up, Amara said, eyes wide. Joyce stared at her like she'd gone off the deep end. Amara, I'm serious, Grandma. If I'm right, this isn't just about Ethan. It's about people who think they can do anything, and no one will stop them. The next morning, the courthouse was pure chaos. News crews packed the steps shoulder to shoulder. Protesters on both sides chanted, some waving Free Ethan signs, others shouting for justice. Inside, Ethan looked like he hadn't slept. Dark circles, blank stare. All he could think about was Trevor's grin. Then, in the front row, he saw her, Amara, notebook in her lap, giving him a small, steady nod. Don't give up. The hearing began. The prosecutor stood tall, confident. Your Honor, the facts are straightforward. We have location data, a financial motive. Objection! Gasps. Cameras zoomed in, heads turned. It wasn't an attorney. It was Amara. Judge Reiner slammed his gavel. Miss Johnson. Just let me show you one thing, she said, holding up her notebook. Just one. If I'm wrong, I'll sit down and never speak again. The room buzzed like it had a heartbeat. The judge rubbed his temples. 30 seconds. Amara rushed to the front, flipped open her notebook, and slapped a printed page on the table. This, she said, pointing, is an email from Linkbridge's old public folder. It's from years ago, but look, Trevor Maddox. He was co-founder. Everyone forgot him. She turned the next page. But last week, he met with Victor Hale's attorneys. The prosecutor laughed. That doesn't prove anything. Then tell me this, Amara said, raising her voice. Why did Trevor book a flight to St. Louis the same day Hale got hurt? A wave of gasps rolled through the courtroom. Phones flew up. Reporters sprinted out. Ethan stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. How did she even find that? Judge Reiner leaned forward. Counselor, is this accurate? The prosecutor stammered. I'm not sure. Then get sure, the judge snapped. This court will recess for 2 hours while I verify this. Gavel down. Chaos up. As the deputies led Ethan away, he looked at Amara, and for the first time in days, he felt something real. Hope, but nobody realized. Trevor Maddox wasn't finished, and his next move wouldn't just be reckless, it could be deadly. 2 hours later, the courtroom was packed tighter than ever. Reporters whispered. Cameras rolled nonstop. Online, the story had exploded. Who is Trevor Maddox? Did the kid just crack the case? When Judge Reiner returned, the air was electric, so quiet you could almost hear people's hearts pounding. He took his seat, flipped through his notes, and looked over the rim of his glasses. After reviewing the evidence presented, he began. This court has serious concerns about the integrity of the state's case. The judge adjusted his glasses and glanced sharply at the prosecutor. And this court has even deeper concerns about the thoroughness of this investigation. The prosecutor's face flushed. Therefore, Judge Rayner continued, I am ordering the immediate release of Mr. Brixley on bond. A gasp rolled through the courtroom like thunder, but the judge wasn't done. Furthermore, I am requesting a formal inquiry into the actions of one Trevor Maddox. And with that, the room erupted. People jumped to their feet. Reporters surged like a wave, cameras flashing, voices shouting. Ethan sat motionless, stunned, until he realized he could breathe again. The cuffs were removed. For the first time in weeks, his wrists were free. He turned, and there she was. Amara, standing on a bench, just tall enough to see over the crowd, grinning so wide it looked like her whole face was smiling. He walked toward her, ignoring the chaos, the headlines, the noise. He knelt to meet her eyes, voice cracking. You saved me. Amara shook her head. Nah, you saved Malik. I just finished the job. Ethan smiled, tears filling his eyes. Your brother would be proud. Her smile faltered for a second. I hope so. Just then, Joyce stepped in, shaking her head with a chuckle. You sure know how to stir the pot, little girl. Amara giggled. Guess it runs in the family. Outside, the storm hadn't stopped. Reporters swarming, questions flying, cameras chasing. But Ethan wrapped an arm gently around Amara's shoulders as security guided them toward a waiting car. Can I ask you something? He said quietly as they walked. Yeah? Why didn't you give up? He asked. Even when everybody said I was guilty? Amara paused, thinking. Then she looked up at him and said the words that would go viral that night, shared in every headline and every newscast. Because when the world calls you a liar, somebody's got to remember the truth. And sometimes, that somebody's a kid. Ethan didn't say anything, he just smiled. And for the first time in months, he didn't feel like a headline or a scandal. He just felt human. A week later, Trevor Maddox was in handcuffs. Investigators uncovered connections to Hale, to the warehouse, to the entire setup. The narrative flipped overnight. From billionaire suspect to wrongfully accused. From scandal to redemption. Linkbridge's stock rebounded. The media praised the justice system. But Ethan didn't care about that. What mattered most was a kitchen table in East Street. Louis. 3 chairs, a plate of fried chicken, a little girl with a notebook, and her grandmother, humming along to the TV. You know, Ethan said between bites, you'd make one heck of a lawyer someday. Amara grinned. You think so? I know so, Ethan said. She squinted, playful. Well then, you better stay out of trouble, Mr. Brixley, 'cause next time I'm charging you. They all laughed, the kind of laugh that feels like breathing after being underwater too long. And for a moment, everything felt right. But this story wasn't just about a billionaire or a kid. It was about loyalty, about standing up when no one else will, about believing in someone when the whole world says not to. So if you take anything away from this, let it be this. Never underestimate the power of your voice. Even the smallest voice can echo loud enough to change a life. And if you're still watching, ask yourself one thing. If you saw someone about to lose everything because no one believed them, would you stand up and say, I can defend them?